Hi, welcome to my presentation. My name is Esther Keymolen and my presentation has the title Unplotment and the Story of Artificial Intelligence, AI. This presentation is based on a chapter I'm currently writing for an edited volume on the relevance of the work of Paul Ricoeur for the philosophy of technology. So, inspired by the work of Paul Ricoeur, I wanted to investigate if it would be possible to do empirically informed research, not by looking at case studies or at analyzing my own first-person experiences, but to look at the stories that we tell about AI. So I wanted to, in using the words of Paul Ricoeur, I want to take a detour. So I want to see if the stories that we tell about AI can help us to have an empirically informed analysis of AI interactions. So I will quickly take you through some of the key concepts of Paul Ricoeur's narrative discourse. So I used his framework to analyze a story, and the story I will be analyzing is actually a documentary. It's a documentary AlphaGo, which I will talk about more later on. And of course, it's not a story in the sense that it's written down, but Paul Ricoeur also takes a broad approach and understanding of what a story can be. And so going to his conceptual framework, I think what's really interesting is that more or less similar to the way in which post-phenologists think of human-world interactions and relations. Also, Ricoeur says that human-world relations are always mediated. Where we focus more on technology, he focuses on language and in particular on stories. And he says that when we read or watch a story or a documentary, it's not just a passive thing, it's an active appropriation. So we make the text ours. And in doing so, we kind of make sense of the world around us. We shape our interactions with others and come to understand our interactions with others and also learn things about ourselves. So it's also about self-understanding. So you actually have this third person, second person, first person relations that you can kind of grasp through the activity of reading stories. And when we interpret stories, we do that always. We're always moving between the poles of innovation and sedimentation. With that, we mean that story is always new. It's always a specific story, but we can never have an exhaustive description of it. And in our aim of understanding the story, we also refer back and we relate it to background knowledge, culture, traditions, enabling us to understand and place the story into a particular genre, for instance. This can all be brought together in another concept that he uses, which is unplotment. So we make one story out of the multiple incidents. And this unplotment, this active unplotment, takes place not merely in the world of the text, but also in the reader. So it's really about the intersection, the active intersection, the lived experience, you could say, the intersection of the world of the text and the world of the reader. So the coming together of these two worlds. So with this conceptual framework in mind, I looked at AlphaGo, which is a documentary covering the match between AlphaGo, an AI application, and Lee Sedol, one of the biggest champions in the Go world. As a way of introducing the documentary, we will look at the trailer together.
Go is the world's oldest continuously played board game. It is one of the simplest and also most abstract.
Beating a professional player at Go is a long-standing challenge of artificial intelligence.
Everything we've ever tried in AI just falls over when you try the game of Go.
The number of possible configurations of the board is more than the number of atoms in the universe.
AlphaGo found a way to learn how to play Go.
So far, AlphaGo has beaten every challenge we've given it, but we won't know its true strength until we play somebody who is at the top of the world, like Lee Sedol.
A match like no other is about to get underway in South Korea.
Lee Sedol is to Go what Roger Federer is to tennis.
Just the very thought of a machine playing a human is inherently intriguing.
The place is a madhouse.
Welcome to the Deep Mind Challenge.
The whole world is watching.
Can Lee Sedol find AlphaGo's weakness? Whoa. Is there, in fact, a weakness?
The game kind of turned on its axis.
Look at his face.
That is not a confident face.
It's developing into a very, very dangerous fight.
Ooh, hold the phone. Lee has left the room.
In the end, it is about pride.
I think something went wrong.
Yes, man. He's got to pronounce a miracle.
These ideas that are driving AlphaGo are going to drive our future.
This is it, folks.
So it's a beautiful documentary. If you haven't seen it already, I can recommend it to go and watch it. You can see it on YouTube. So synopsis of the documentary, as you saw, AlphaGo is an AI application developed by DeepMind. And DeepMind is a startup which is acquired by Google. So it's owned now by Google. And the goal of the AI is to learn how to play Go, which is a very difficult game for a computer program to play. We see in the documentary first that it beats the EU champion Fan Hu. It's kind of a test case for the DeepMind crew to see if the AI is any good. So it beats Fan Hu, who then becomes also part of the DeepMind team and actually takes on a very central role in a documentary because he kind of is a narrator of the whole documentary. And then the biggest part of the documentary focuses on this match between AlphaGo and Lee Sedol, who is one of the best Go players in the world. And Lee Sedol loses from the AI application AlphaGo. So analyzing this documentary, it's a very rich documentary. I unfortunately cannot go through all my findings, so I will touch upon what I believe to be the most important ones. And as a way of ending this presentation, I will show you how I think that looking into these AI stories can help us to come to a rich philosophical analysis of AI applications. So looking at the story of AlphaGo, obviously the genre is quite easy to pinpoint. It's a documentary. But looking into the documentary more in depth, I saw that it actually resonates with Greek tragedies. It has tragic-like characteristics. First of all, we have heroes, right? We have the Go players, and in particular, we have the tragic hero, Lee Sedol. And our heroes in the documentary are characterized by hubris. So they're overly confident that they're going to win from the AI application. Now we'll show you some parts of the documentary.
Oh, it's okay, just the program is so easy. So it will be easy to play.
We chose Lee Sedol because we wanted a legendary historic player, somebody who has been acknowledged as the greatest player of the last decade.
방심은 하지 않겠습니다. 그래도 아직까진 그래도 제가 조금 수가 있지 않을까 생각하고요.
I will not be too arrogant, but I don't think that it will be a very close match. The level of the player that AlphaGo went against in October is not the same level as me. So given that a couple of months was only passed, I don't think that it is enough for it to be able to catch up with me. My hope is that it will be either 5-0 for me or maybe 4-1. So the critical point for me is to make sure I do not lose one.
So you see, both players are very confident and that they're going to win, but then fate strikes. Lee Sedol, he loses. With every game he loses, he realizes that it was hubris to accept this challenge, but he has entered the magical circle of the game, so he has to play it until the end. And we see his struggle taking place actually through the eyes of the viewers, the media, the commentators. So they take on the role of the choir in the Greek tragedy. So they comment on the struggling of Lee Sedol, and he can't leave the game. So in AlphaGo versus Sedol, we actually see fate and freedom coming together, enforcing, so to say, the game's tragical character.
I can feel his pain. Like he couldn't believe. He couldn't accept it. It takes time for him to accept the outcome.
Yes, so we see the struggle of Lee Sedol, and it's of course devastating because the creativity and intuition that we thought was something that solely belonged to human beings is something that actually is also being displayed by the AI. But simultaneously, it's not just that, it's much more complex. There are also feelings of wonder, of awe, for the stunningness of what this AI can do, because it opens up the possibility to play Go in a completely different way. So we see a very complex interaction of conflicting emotions in this game. And I refer to that as a kind of sublime experience. It's the coming together of very conflicting emotions. And I will show you a longer part of the documentary, but it really shows this sublime experience.
Ooh, looks like Lee is taking a little bit of a break.
Lee Sedol go to smoke, and AlphaGo just play. I don't think about the openness will be there or not. So Ajab sees AlphaGo plays the move 37, and Ajab puts the stone in the board.
와, 정말 생각지도 못한.
Value.
That's a very surprising move.
I thought it was a mistake.
When I see this move, for me it's just the big shock. What? Normally human will never play this one because it's bad. It's just bad. We don't know why. It's bad.
But it's a little bit high.
Yeah.
It's fifth line. Normally you don't make a shoulder hit on the fifth line.
So coming on top of a fourth line stone is really unusual.
Yeah, that's an exciting move.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've seen an original move here. That's the kind of move that you play Go for.
Hey. Interesting stuff. This fifth line shoulder hit.
I wasn't expecting that. I don't really know if it's a good or bad move at this point.
The professional commentators almost unanimously said that not a single human player would have chosen move 37. So I actually had to poke around in AlphaGo to see what AlphaGo thought. And AlphaGo actually agreed with that assessment. AlphaGo said there was a 1 in 10,000 probability that move 37 would have been played by a human player. So it knew that this was an extremely unlikely move. It went beyond its human guide and it came up with something new and creative and different.
I am very much watching the game through these commentators. That's the way it works. So when they're confused, I'm certainly confused. At the same time, I'm latching on to the fact that they are confused, right? That is an interesting moment. When everyone else is confused, who's not confused, right? Besides the machine.
I want to see Lee Sedol when he sees this move.
He's back. Leah's back.
알파고는 기실은 뭐 확률적 계산을 하고 그냥 이기기 위한 그런 머신에 불과하다고 생각을 했었는데 그 수를 보는 순간 아니구나. 충분히 알파고도 창의적이다. 정말 아름답고 바둑의 그런 아름다움을 잘 표현한 수고 굉장히 창의적인 수였다.
Yeah, so this is such a beautiful moment in the documentary. On the one hand, we can feel the agony of Lee Sedol, while we simultaneously also share his wonder for this extraordinary move. So a move which is on the one hand non-human in the sense that a human would probably never had played it, and on the other hand, it's utterly human, as it displays a capacity for creativity and intuition we until now had only ascribed to humans. So leaving this more this analysis of the genres, so the documentary and its resonance with Greek tragedy, I also looked in the way in which we appropriate, or I appropriate the documentary and look at these three levels of first person, second person, and third person interactions. So we see, when it comes to self-understanding, that playing with AlphaGo, interacting with this AI, leads to a personal transition, a new understanding of the self.
Several times after the game, he said he wanted to go out for fresh air. I said, I can go with you and have a chat. He said, no, I want to go myself.
I feel something very strange. I lose this program. And I don't understand myself anymore.
So Van Hu, he loses, and he loses himself, actually. But after going through these emotions of losing the game, he seemingly found a new part of his identity. So he becomes the first human Go player, professional Go player, to have lost from a computer program. And this makes him part of an historical event. And then he chooses later on to join the team, the DeepMind team, to further help improve AlphaGo. Also, Lee Sedol reflects on his game with AlphaGo, and I will share that with you too.
이번 경험을 통해서 조금 더 성숙했다고 생각하기 때문에 그걸 정리 잘해서 앞으로 또 발전할 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 정말 내 바둑 두는 이유를 찾았다라는 느낌, 사람들이 이렇게 해줬을 때 그런 느낌? 정말 더 나아가자면 정말 바둑 잘했구나 그런 생각이 들 정도로 정말 저한테는 그 순간도 잊지 못할 것 같은 정말 그런 경험이었습니다.
So when looking at the second person interaction, we can say that AlphaGo becomes the other. It's a kind of, we could speak of an augmented alterity relation. And what really stands out is that in this interaction, there is an enormous lack of intersubjectivity. I will first show you the video clip.
I just saw him looking at his opponent's face, and that's just a kind of a habit.
It's just an instinct as a player to look at the person across the board.
It's sort of like something that Lee Sedol would do when he was wondering how his opponent was feeling.
Right.
It's just a habit. So it's not as if Ajia Huang is going to do any giveaway, because Ajia Huang isn't AlphaGo, right?
So here you really see that AlphaGo's moves can be creative and might be beautiful, but AlphaGo doesn't play with its opponent. Playing is not just following the rules of the game, which AlphaGo does perfectly. It is also coming together of actors who co-experience the event of playing Go by looking at each other, reading emotions, smelling, hearing, talking, and these parts of the game are lost when AlphaGo plays. So these aspects are moved to the background.
With human, when you play, you can have exchange by feeling. I look in you, I know, okay, maybe you won't talk with me. Maybe you fear about me. I can feel many, many things. But AlphaGo, you can feel nothing. So when you can feel nothing when you play, you have a more question about yourself.
So this, to me, is also a crucial insight. So when there's a lack of intersubjectivity, there is much more emphasis on this first-person experience. So there is self-doubt, loneliness, feeling strangeness. This is, I think, something that's really interesting also for a first-person perspective analysis. And just to add, it's not just the players themselves that experience this lack of intersubjectivity. Also, the people watching, the commentators, are looking for tells, looking for ways to understand or interpret the AI. And actually, it's really striking that the DeepMind team behind AlphaGo actually goes to great lengths to try to explain and open up to the audience and make the AlphaGo as transparent as possible. So then, moving to the third-person interaction, the referentiality, it's not just that AlphaGo will transform Go or transforms the people playing with it, but there is, of course, also this view that it will change the world, and that what Lee experienced will be something we will all experience.
There are so many possible application domains where creativity in a different dimension to what humans could do could be immensely valuable to us. And I'd just love to have more of those moments where we look back and say, yeah, that was just like Move 37. Something beautiful occurred there.
At least in a broad sense, Move 37 begat Move 78, begat a new attitude at Lee Sedol, a new way of seeing the game. He improved through this machine. His humanness was expanded after playing this inanimate creation. And the hope is that that machine, and in particular the technologies behind it, can have the same effect with all of us.
Yeah, so here we see that the world is, or in these there is this promise that the world will also be changed by the AI. Okay, moving to the end of my presentation because I'm running over time. What can we learn from this AI story? These are some of my conclusions. I think what we saw in the documentary is that even with AI, which is a kind of promising, disrupting technology, hubris might lead people to lose sight of the transforming, mediating qualities of the technology. They still think it's a kind of instrument that they can just control. So in the words of Don Eide, they long for transformation of the technology without considering the mediating qualities. But this losing control is not merely a bad thing. Yes, we lose something in this interaction with the AI, but there is also this experience of sublime beauty. And this is a very complex experience. And I think what we can learn from this is that to have a very in-depth AI analysis from a postmological perspective, it's really important that we become more sensitive to the complexity of our human-world relations. So we, of course, have this idea of multi-stability, that different actors can have different mediated relations with or through a technology, but also within one relationship we can see many different feelings and experiences going on. I also think that documentary shows the importance of first-person experiences. I think from a philosophy of technology, post-phenomenological perspective, we can really nuance these antagonistic framings. Go players are not diminished, but transformed by their interaction. Also, I see that in every mediation, some aspects of reality are highlighted and others are hidden in the background. I think this loss of intersubjectivity when it comes to AI interactions is really crucial and should, I think, be one of the key aspects of our analysis. And finally, for future research, what I think is really interesting is there's this inherent need of human beings to interpret and understand the AI. And I think in the current research and debate on explainable AI, the emphasis lies on explainability to ensure more robust technologies and more robust systems, or explainability for legal compliance. But I think what we've seen in the documentary for everyday life experience, it's really super important that explainable AI is also tailored to enable a flourishing life with AI. And I think this is something that post-phenomenology in its analysis could definitely contribute to. So thank you for your attention, and I'm much looking forward to the discussion.